Honestly, a brother who can only get day labor jobs with a middle school education is nothing but a burden to us. Ha ha ha. The father of the groom, whom I met for the first time at my sister's wedding, insulted me like that during his speech. If this continues, my sister's big day will turn into a sad memory. Feeling many emotional glances directed at me, I was thinking about how to respond when. That's enough. My sister, with tears streaming down her face, suddenly stood up. I was told to keep this a secret from my brother, but the truth is, my name is Mike. I may look like any other kid, but my parents were something else. I know it's not good to talk about your parents that way, but they were really awful, and I hated them. The only reason I didn't run away from them was because of my sister. My dear sister is named Emily. I couldn't stand seeing her get hit by our parents. Maybe I also wanted to protect her as her older brother. I don't consider my parents to be real parents. Why? Because they were always fighting and never showed us any love. Sure, they gave us food, but it was only one meal a day, and on school days, we didn't even get that. There's school lunch, so there's no need to feed you at home. That was my mother's opinion. Because there was nothing to eat at home, I always made sure to eat as much as I could at school. Sometimes, when a classmate was absent, I would get permission from the teacher to take home leftover bread or desserts and secretly eat them to stave off hunger. During summer vacation, both Emily and I would lose weight and go back to school looking thinner. Our teacher, Mr. Smith, suspected that my parents were neglecting us. Thankfully, we weren't subjected to physical abuse, but the neglect we experienced is what you would call child abandonment or child neglect. Mr. Smith even came for a home visit to subtly check on our environment, but my father would say, "Mind your own business." My mother would chase him away, saying, "A mere teacher shouldn't interfere with family matters." Our neighbors seemed concerned about the abnormality of our home but hesitated to help openly, perhaps fearing the consequences. That's fine. It's natural for everyone to prioritize their own safety and protect their families. It's only natural to think that getting involved in facing the fallout isn't worth it. So, I decided to prioritize protecting Emily above all else. When we were both suffering from the lack of attention and nutrition from our parents, an incident occurred at our house. While we were at school, our parents got into a huge fight that ended up involving the police. They threw things at each other, broke windows, and screamed at the top of their lungs, prompting the neighbors to call the police. Their fight was so intense that the responding officers had to physically restrain them. My father was injured by shards from a broken vase. And my mother was beaten so badly her face was swollen. After receiving treatment at the hospital, both were charged with assault and taken into custody. During their questioning, our neglect also came to light. At first, there was talk of sending us to a foster care facility since we were minors, but our distant relatives, the Johns, stepped up and offered to take us in. It was Tom who came to pick us up, and we had always affectionately called him Uncle Tommy even before then. We had to transfer to a new school, but since Uncle Tommy and his wife, Natalie, were always kind to us, we accepted their offer without hesitation. Tom and Natalie ran a small handyman business. I continued my education up to middle school while observing their work. During summer breaks, I would help with the business. The smiles and gratitude from the neighbors showed me the joy of the handyman work. So, when it came time to decide on my future in my third year of middle school, I chose to join the handyman business without hesitation. Tom and Natalie told me, "You can go to college if you want," but I turned down their offer. They weren't wealthy, yet they took us in. I didn't want to be a further burden. I wanted to earn the money for Emily's education myself. By taking on the heavy and demanding tasks, I wanted to contribute to the handyman business and repay the couple for their kindness. So I have no regrets about my choice. Emily also took the initiative to help with housework and grew into a well-liked young woman in the neighborhood. With Emily handling the household chores, the couple and I could focus on work, and the handyman business thrived. However, just before Emily graduated high school, another incident occurred. That day, I had taken the day off to buy a gift to celebrate Emily's acceptance into college and was at the department store. The incident was that Tom and Natalie got into an accident while out on a job. The only consolation was that they died instantly without suffering. With the help of our relatives, we managed to hold the funeral, but we lost our last dependable guardians and were left on our own again. Although it was lonely, we couldn't afford to stop moving forward. According to their will, I inherited the handyman business. I'll quit college and help you, Mike. Don't be silly. You worked so hard to get into college, so go and study. But you need to study hard, get a good job, and be happy. Mike. I managed to convince Emily, who was ready to give up college, to stick to the original plan and send her off. I didn't want Emily to suffer, and I wasn't going to change my mind about that. Her college was out of state, and she was moving into a dorm in the fall. We stayed in touch regularly after she started college, updating each other on our lives. Emily graduated on time and got a job at the company she wanted. She steadily built her career, and after about 3 years, she told me she was getting married to the man she had been dating. Congratulations, Emily. Thanks, Mike. I could tell from her excited voice over the phone that she was genuinely happy. It's all thanks to you that I got to go to college. It's your hard work that paid off. It's hard to believe little Emily is getting married. I'm so proud. Hey, stop talking like that. When I mention something from my childhood, Emily reacts. I secretly smile, imagining her face turning red with anger. Emily I had always protected was getting married. I had always wished for her happiness. Despite being born to such toxic parents, she grew up to be a kind person. I wanted her to be the happiest person in the world. Hey, Mike, I have a favor to ask. I'll do anything for my sweet sister. We're having the wedding in the next county. Will you come? The wedding? Of course, I wanted to attend my dear sister's big day, but I only had a middle school education. I was concerned that if someone at the wedding cared about such things, it might make Emily feel uncomfortable in her new life. Some might think it's outdated, but there are still people who care about one's highest level of education. If they equate someone with only a middle school education with poverty or stupidity, they might think the same of Emily. Of course, there are other reasons as well. Please, I want you to see me in my wedding dress. All right. I couldn't refuse my dear sister's cute request, so I agreed. Just, please, no speech for me. I don't want to stand out. Oh, yes, that might be best. Sorry. But I am truly happy for your happiness. I know, thank you. Understanding my feelings, Emily accepted my request without saying much. Relieved, I eagerly looked forward to the days leading up to her wedding. On Emily's wedding day, I dressed sharply and headed to the venue. Emily greeted me happily and introduced me to her in-laws. Are you Emily's brother? I'm Tom, nice to meet you. Thank you for the kind introduction. Nice to meet you too. Your name is Tom? It's the same as someone who helped us a lot. It feels like fate. Haha, I guess you two are really siblings. Emily said the same thing when we first met. Come on. That's what started our relationship. Emily cheerfully explained how they met. I was reassured to see that Tom seemed to genuinely care for her. Tom helps his father, the company president, and works very hard. It reminded me of you, Mike. I can see how much Emily cares for you. I'm envious because I don't have any siblings. Is that so? I felt confident that Tom would make Emily happy, so I shook his hand firmly. Please take care of Emily. She's the sister I've always protected and cherished. Tom, receiving my sentiment, nodded yes with a serious expression. Yes. I promise. His strong words reassured me, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. So, I found out that Tom is a serious and kind person. Next, it was time to meet Tom's parents. I wondered what kind of people they would be as we headed for the introductions. This is my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law is over there talking to a guest. John, this is my brother. Nice to meet you, I'm Mike, Emily's brother. I'm John, Tom's father. His haughty demeanor matched that of a company president. Emily had explained that John was an old-fashioned man who had built his company from the ground up. I could understand why he couldn't afford to be lenient. So, what kind of work do you do? What's your highest level of education? I had expected this question, so I wasn't surprised, though the directness was a bit much. Emily looked worried, but I smiled and answered calmly. I run a handyman business. My highest level of education is middle school. What? I have no regrets about my life choices. I take pride in my work as a handyman. There is nothing to be ashamed of. A handyman? Isn't that just day labor? When he said that with a completely exasperated look, I thought, oh, he's the type who cares about academic background. The ceremony felt more like a party hosted by the groom's family than a wedding. There were several moments clearly designed to flatter John, causing many guests to smile wryly. After the costume change, it was time for John's speech. Tom is truly exceptional, and I am confident he will continue to grow the company after me. The bride, Emily, is also wonderful. And I trust she will support him well. John might be a bit tipsy. His speech was fluent, but his eyes were slightly red. Still, I was genuinely happy that he acknowledged Emily. Feeling a surge of pride, I quickly dabbed my eyes with a handkerchief to catch the tears. But I do have concerns. Specifically, about Emily's brother. John's tone grew sharper, and I looked up. Mike only has a middle school education. That alone is an issue, but his profession is even more troubling. Oh no. The room started to stir at John's words. In today's society, it's problematic enough that the future brother-in-law of a company president is a mere handyman. Don't you all agree? His disdainful tone made it clear he was belittling me. It's one thing if he genuinely believed that. But it's another to announce it at such a joyous occasion. Was he truly here to celebrate Tom and Emily's wedding? Honestly, a brother who can only get day labor jobs with a middle school education is nothing but a burden to us. Everyone knew I was sitting at the bride's family table. I felt various emotions from the glances directed at me and wondered how to handle the situation. If this continued, Emily's special day would turn into a sad memory. That's enough. Just as I was contemplating my next move, Emily's shout cut through the tension. The sound of a chair falling echoed as Tom, John, and all the guests turned their attention to Emily. I thought it was terrible when I introduced Mike, but this is too much. What part of him is a burden? You don't know anything about him. Emily? Tom seemed just as shocked by Emily's outburst. You think it's a problem because Mike only has a middle school education? What's so bad about that? Do you think everyone in the world can attend high school without any worries? That's not how it is. Yes, we were poor. So what? Emily's eyes filled with tears as she poured out her emotions. She must have been holding back for a long time. She wouldn't stop until she had expressed everything. Our parents neglected us. We only got one meal a day, and on school days, nothing at all. Mike and I were so skinny that our neighbors worried about us. But we could still smile because he protected me. He's the kindest brother ever. Emily. Hearing Emily's heartfelt words, I felt my own tears welling up. Mike gave up his own education to work so he could send me to high school and college. Can you understand that, John? That sometimes people have to work instead of going to school, not for themselves, but for their family? Ugh. John grunted under the force of Emily's words. His complexion grew pale. After our relatives who took us in died in a tragic accident, Mike took over the handyman business. John. You might think being a handyman is just day labor, but Mike brings happiness to many people with his work. I respect and am proud of him more than anyone. So when someone insults him, Emily, I understand. You love Mike very much, don't you? Yes. Tom gently hugged Emily, who was overwhelmed with emotion, comforting her. That used to be my role, but I now knew for sure that I could trust Tom with it. As I dabbed my tears with my handkerchief, a ripple of applause started from one corner of the room and quickly spread, engulfing the entire venue in a wave of emotion. Emily's revelation had turned the guests into our allies. Mike, may I say it? Emily sought my confirmation, but I had a feeling she wouldn't stop even if I said no. Actually, Mike told me to keep this a secret, but I think now is the time to reveal it. Mike has been working on something else on the side. Some of you might know him. Knowing what was coming, I smiled wryly. He is the masked live streamer handyman. Right after Emily's announcement, gasps of what echoed around the room. My secret side job, which has become quite popular lately, is live streaming life consultations. Thanks to this, I have the largest audience in the US for life consultations. Since it's all voice-based, anyone who has used my service would instantly recognize me if I spoke. That's why I had promised not to give a speech. I was worried that if my side job was revealed, it would draw too much attention to me and ruin Emily's wedding. But now, there was nothing I could do about it. Resigned, I glanced at Emily, who seemed pleased to see the attention shift to me. While Emily seemed satisfied, the guests flocked around me, throwing the wedding into chaos. The MC, looking troubled, announced that the wedding would be temporarily halted and rescheduled with just close family members later. And the gathering dispersed. After the crowd around me finally cleared, I headed to the family waiting room, feeling awkward. The first thing I saw was John being scolded by a woman in an elegant dress, who I assumed was Tom's mother. John was kneeling on the floor, receiving a one-sided reprimand. I hesitated to interrupt. Excuse me. Oh, dear, I apologize for showing you such an unpleasant scene. The woman approached me with a smile and apologized politely. Nice to meet you. I am Michelle, Tom's mother. Nice to meet you. I'm Mike, Emily's brother. I'm sorry for ruining the wedding. What are you talking about? It was all his fault for speaking so poorly of you. If Emily hadn't spoken up, I would have slapped him myself. Michelle's strong words made me flinch. Besides, I am a fan of Handyman, the live streamer. Your work is truly amazing. I was just explaining your contributions and impact to him. Thank you. It's really a shame he didn't realize it even after speaking to you before the ceremony. I was happy that Michelle was a fan, but I couldn't help thinking that it wasn't John's fault for not knowing about Handyman. May I say something? Yes? I want to apologize and make amends with Mike. In that case, go ahead. But if you say anything disrespectful again, you know what will happen. Of course. With Michelle's permission, John stood before me. His knees were slightly shaking, probably from kneeling on the floor. I'm sorry for earlier. Even though I didn't know what you do, it was inappropriate to say those things in front of everyone. He apologized deeply. Emily also told me about how much you've sacrificed and worked hard. I couldn't do what you did. I respect you for that. I am proud to have you as part of our family. Please, forgive my foolishness? Yes. I look forward to being family with you. I shook his outstretched hand, and we reconciled. Later, in a peaceful atmosphere, we held another wedding ceremony for the bride and groom, which went off without a hitch. Since then, John not only doted on Emily like his own daughter but also took a liking to me. Recently, he even introduced me to a woman from his company. He recommended me highly for my character and work ethic, leading to a relationship that blossomed into love. I, who had never had time for romance due to work and taking care of Emily, experienced love for the first time. We continued our relationship smoothly, and this fall, we will be getting married. When I told Emily, she cried tears of joy. Despite our awful parents, Emily and I have both found happiness. I hope to continue creating opportunities for our family to gather and make our happiness even greater.